9/11, a tragedy that shocked America. But what if everything we've been told about 9/11 was a lie? What if 9/11 was an inside job? Sounds crazy at first, but think about it. In the weeks leading up to 9/11, there was mysterious trucks just spotted arriving at the World Trade Center between 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. These times was when absolutely no one was there. The janitorial staff had left, and it was right before the Wall Street workers had arrived for their morning meetings and everything like that. And I think that whatever they were doing inside the building there, whatever they were carrying in, that was used to put down a controlled demolition. Think about it. But there's more. What about the witnesses around 9/11 that say that they heard or felt bombs? Watch this guy.
I think a bomb went off in the lobby first, then a plane hit the building. But then another plane hit the other building. But when I was coming through the doors on the other side of the Trade Center, something, either they blew the lobby up or something, because it blew the glass out of the doors and knocked us all down, and I got smoke and everything on me. I just feel a little shook up because I got blasted, so I'm just trying to,
Steel buildings don't just fall down. That's kind of crazy. If you think about it, this building was literally meant to withstand the impact of a fighter jet. But when the plane was hit on the 70th floor, around an hour later, the building fell straight down. This is a steel building with a steel frame. Think about that. Never in history before have we ever seen a plane hit a building and it fall before or after 9/11. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? Some people say, well, it's from the fire. Okay. Well, I don't believe that either. We have Oreo Palmer stating on video, we've got 2 isolated pockets of fire. We should be able to knock it down with 2 lines. Listen here.
We got 2 isolated pockets of fire. We should be able to knock it down.
That's crazy. He literally said we should be able to knock it down, and yet within a minute of him stating this, actually, the building collapsed. Richard Gage is an architect for the AIA, and he has this to say about 9/11.
Architect of 20 years, member of the American Institute of Architects, and have been studying steel-framed, fireproof buildings for about that long. Hit the buildings, and there was an explosion and a fire, and about an hour and a half later, in the case of the North Tower, the buildings collapsed due to structural weakening due to the fires. The problem is that we don't have large gradual deformations associated with collapses, and fires in high-rises have never brought down a steel frame high-rise building at all, ever. And what we have, unfortunately, is the evidence in the Twin Towers and the third skyscraper to collapse that day, which most people don't know anything about it. We have the evidence of the 10 key features of controlled demolition. In the case of Building 7, it collapses straight down into its own footprint at free fall speed in the first 100 feet. It's dropping, as you can see, symmetrically, smoothly, at free fall speed in the first 100 feet, 2.5 seconds. This is uncanny. There's 40,000 tons of structural steel designed to resist this collapse.
As he just talked about, the World Trade Center 7 fell perfectly, symmetrical, freestyle fall. These are all characteristics of controlled demolitions. A plane never even hit that building. Many people say that it's from aftershock, but I don't think aftershock has ever knocked down a building in a demolition format. I could be wrong. There's also another crazy thing. Red iron. So this occurs when a bomb goes off and the heat from the bomb gets so strong it turns the iron red. The cuts are also very clean because of the fragments and just the way that it works. If you go ahead and look at 9/11, here are some pictures of what it actually looks like. That looks very similar to what red iron looks like at the site of a demolition. So there's the faults within the building, there's even more. If you think about our money for a second, let's go ahead and look at it. If you fold the money within a certain pattern, you get this. Look at that for a second. The $5 bill shows the towers before they were hit. The $10 bill shows the towers as soon as they were hit. You can see the little smoke within it. The $20 bill, you can see the buildings are kind of falling. You can still see that smoke and point of impact. And the $50 bill shows like just the leftover smoke. The $10 bill shows, $100 bill shows a little leftover smoke. And this is mainly to represent the New World Order. You say, well, maybe that was just to honor 9/11. This bill design was created in 1996. That is when the first bill came out, and the last one, I believe, was in 1998. Oh, multiple years before 9/11. Did they maybe know something was going to happen? Continuing on with what the money shows us, Larry Silverstein, a couple months before 9/11, bought a lease to the World Trade Center. Within this lease, he had the right to buy insurance plans. He decided to buy an insurance plan, and this insurance plan coincidentally covered large amounts of terrorist insurance. Some people say that this is just a coincidence and he didn't know. There's no way he could have known. It's just a plan that he chose. But if you think about it, I can't think of a time in history where America's really had a big terrorist attack. Anything like 9/11. That's the main one everyone thinks of. So, kind of a crazy insurance plan to buy. But after 9/11, he also took that company to court claiming, well, there was 2 acts of terrorism that occurred within my building. I should get double the plan because not 1 act of terrorism happened, but rather 2. After the court has decided, he ended up winning the case, and he was awarded $4,555,000,000. This number right here, in case I said it wrong. One troubling fact for me when I started looking into this was, what about the Pentagon? I could totally believe the World Trade Center, but the Pentagon just wasn't adding up to me. What I later found out was that on September 10th of 2001, there was a press conference held within the Pentagon. Donald Rumsfeld revealed that some estimates say that we could not track at that time $2.3 trillion, trillion with a T, in transactions. That is actually a crazy amount of money. And if you think about it, the very next day, actually, the Pentagon was struck, and it coincidentally had to do the part that was actually in charge of transactions and stuff like that. All the evidence of that $2.3 trillion in missing money was gone. You also had a new terrorist attack to look into. No one ever mentioned that money again. That money is still out there somewhere. One of the most important reasons to think about when you're thinking about if 9/11 was an inside job is, well, why would our government stage an inside job? That sounds completely insane. But the main reasons they would do it is money, power, and control. Those are things that government always want. But if you look into it further, it goes a little bit deeper. One of the acts commonly talked about that was passed after 9/11 is the U.S. Patriot Act. The U.S. Patriot Act in Section 201 specifically states the government has authority to intercept wire, oral, and electronic communications relating to terrorism. Many people thought, well, relating to terrorism is the most important part. Of course we want to accept that. We don't want any other act like this to ever happen. Now, your people are also voting for this act in a state of fear, too. Keep that in mind. But who has control over the definitions? Well, that's your government too. At any point in time, they could literally change the definition of a terrorist. The current definition of a terrorist is a violent criminal acts committed by individuals and or groups to further ideology goals stemming from domestic influences such as those of political, social, religious, racial, or environmental natures. Now, that sounds pretty okay, right? But who else also has the ability to interpret whether your actions were those of a terrorist? Well, again, that goes to your government. So you could be doing something that is totally right, totally understandable, but they say, nah, you're a terrorist, and then you lose your freedoms. That's crazy enough. But wait, there is even more that goes into this. So the 9/11 Commission Act allows the government to see everything shipped in and out of this country, whether it is through air or cargo, which means on a ship. So what this entails is this is the reason for the TSA. They can check you, they can check anything you bring onto a plane. Before 9/11, this was not a thing. There was smaller levels of security, but nothing this large. But what many people don't talk about is that this also applies for not just humans, but for items too. So, if a salesman was shipping in some items and he said, alright, I have 5,000 items on here, they said, okay, well, I would like to see every last one of those items, that is okay. If they say, oh, well, now you got 6,000 items and that man was trying to get out of paying some taxes, though that may be wrong, now they know exactly how much stuff he was shipping in. So now they know the exact amount of money this man was making, so they also get more tax money. Again, back to money. After 9/11, we went to Afghanistan. Many people think that we were just there for what we claimed to be there for, which was removing weapons of mass destruction. Everyone really supported that because you don't want any more acts of terrorists created with those weapons of mass destruction upon you. Makes sense. But while we were there, a battalion of soldiers went into this very elegant house. It could also be described as like a castle or a mansion. These soldiers carried out large crates. We suspect that ancient artifacts from WW2 and possibly even Egypt were in there. However, we have no way to know. All we know is that those crates were brought back home and no one really ever mentions them. So, what if there's more to 9/11 than we ever thought? What if our government did it? For control, money, and power? Why, we were all sitting here thinking there was a terrorist who attacked our nation that day. What if there's a different person to blame?